Today on the show, I'm going to show you how I built a successful consulting business all online from the comfort of my own home. My name is Russell Pearson. I'm the founder of the Forge Business Program, and for the last 30 years, I've been working with consultants just like you to help them grow successful consulting practices. And I want to show you today how I've done it in a way that's given me the ultimate flexibility and freedom to work when I want, choose the clients I work with, and at the end of the day, work from anywhere in the world. So there are a number of things I'm going to show you about choices that I made that were relevant to how I wanted to live my professional lifestyle that you might want to consider when you're building your business. But before I get on to that, I want to talk about a couple of limiting beliefs that may have started to go out after COVID, but were certainly around before COVID, that have stopped people from actually getting the real flexibility and freedom to design their professional lifestyle the way they need. And these things often get in the way, even now in this day and age. They get in the way of consultants actually starting to work with clients because they think they need all these other things before they can do them. So let me cover off on those. So the first of those is the office. Now, we thought we needed an office, and now that we're past COVID, we understand that we can actually work remote. But interestingly, I started this business before COVID came along, which means that I was already finding ways to be able to interact with people online. And so there was all sorts of consultants telling me it wouldn't work, that people wouldn't work with me online, and I proved that before we even got to the calamity of the COVID years, and what those years enabled the rest of the consulting businesses to understand is that they could work remotely when they had to. Now there's another concept where people believe that they want to be face-to-face because they have better results with someone face-to-face. Well, I think it's the same limiting belief that we had about having to manage people all in the one place. Now we've got the skills to be able to manage people remotely. Back then, we thought we needed to manage people all in an office space, and I can tell you there were tens of thousands of dollars that we spent on offices. So we don't need those anymore. We've got better at our management. Well, communication is very much the same thing. I'll talk about that in just a moment. But if you believe that you have to get in front of someone to have a more positive experience, to create a better outcome for your client, then my suggestion to you is that you have an opportunity to improve your skills, because working through this space is very different than being in person. And there are certain things that you don't have, which is touch and the feel of the tangible feel of like shaking a hand, and potentially even the feeling of the energy of the person, because that kinesthetic energy is a real thing. But there are other things that you can use in this space to get the same effect and get the same outcome. It's just a different way of looking at things. So those things have definitely come up when I've talked to other consultants, and I've now shown them how they can do that, and they are now comfortably doing it from an online platform or from anywhere that they feel that they want to work from. So it's a choice. You can work with people face to face if you want, or you can choose not to. I've chosen not to because of my ability to work with so many more people. So last year I had 157 engagements. Yes, I went through and I counted them all up. 3 of those engagements were not online. They were actually face-to-face, only 3. And so in showing you that, I want you to understand that you can too do that if you want. Now, why have I chosen to do that? Well, number one, I don't like traveling. I don't like the wasted time in traveling. I used to use it for my education. Now I just get up earlier and actually I work out and do those sort of things when I'm getting my education, as far as audio books and the like in my ears. My ability to actually travel about 20 seconds, if that, from one side of the house to the other, to actually come into this space and present, whether I'm doing training or consult, if I'm doing even one-on-one or group facilitations, I can do it all from the comfort of here. And I've chosen that because I like the speed and the ability to do it. I also like the fact that I can not wear pants if I have to. That's not necessarily a thing that I choose to do very often. But right now, I'm going to say it flat out, I've chosen to wear tracksuit pants just to let you know that I can. And so there's all these choices that come with it. And one of those choices as well is to be able to go from one meeting to the other without someone feeling that they're in a waiting room waiting to speak to me. And so if you're punctual, if you're good at managing your time, then you can actually use the online space to consult probably 3 or 4 times more than that person who has to travel between client engagements. So there's all of these things that are in the way that are preventing people from potentially taking this step. But at the same time, there is the choice. If you're building a select consulting business, which is what I recommend people do, the ability to select the things that you want to do and who do you want to work with and how do you want to work anywhere in the world, then you have the choice to do that. I've chosen to it because of the efficiency that it provides me. Now it's completely up to you how you want to design it too. But I'm just going to show you how I've done this if it's of interest to you. So the things that have been important in making sure I can do this, well, number one was the internet. Now, internet has improved, and in different countries it is poorer or better or whatever it might be. But having some form of stable internet has been key for me being able to do this business from anywhere in the world. So there are all sorts of different technologies you can look at right now that enable either high quality internet where you are stably or remotely, and you can actually get everything from Starlink to portable devices you can take with you so that you can work from anywhere in the world. That internet is key. And I'll talk about the software that plays into that internet too. But making sure that you spend the money there in a place where you may have spent, 5, 6, even 10 times the amount on an office space before, the internet is your office space. So that's where we're actually spending a good amount of money. Now, I don't spend a lot, but I'm spending a few $100s every month to make sure that I've got stable internet. And so that's an absolute key. Now, interestingly, I decided to trial a few years back, how could I do this on the road from anywhere in the world? And I was running sessions and doing consulting from the top of like the snowfields. I did it during summer as well, so I could get up there on the top of the mountains. Fantastic internet coverage up there. And I was able to have those consultations outside, literally out in nature. Right? And I love getting out into the mountains and doing those things. So I do enjoy the flexibility of being able to do that. But what I found is that I prefer, probably because I'm a bit of a homebody and probably because I'm a bit of an introvert, I do prefer the being at home, doing the work, and then leaving this space to actually go and enjoy my holiday and nature separately. So I'm not tying those two worlds together, but you absolutely can. And so I proved it was successful. I went on driving trips and found all the different access points where you can find really high quality internet. I found all the pieces of hardware and software that you can use to enable you to do that. So if traveling is a big piece for you, you absolutely can do it on the road. I've just chosen to do it from my own home. So the other part on technology will be what software are you going to be using? Now, I tend to use Zoom. The reason I use that is, number one, it's very accessible. Everyone's got used to using Zoom, and I would prefer, instead of something fancy, to go with something that people understand. And so things like Teams, for some people, are brilliant because of the type of clientele they work with who are always using Teams. Now, Teams, in my experience, has been a little bit choppy, and I would prefer for a consistent ability to communicate without any of that choppiness involved. Same thing with Zoho and a number of other platforms that you can use. Really, it's up to you and the clientele that you work with as to what you choose to use. Now, interestingly, I'm a member of the Professional Speakers Association here in Australia. So Professional Speakers Australia is the association. And part of the member benefits for them is to actually get a very discounted package with Zoom. Now, it costs me $600 and something a year, and you might think, well, Zoom's much cheaper than that. But what it gives me is the full Zoom package, which is actually $3,500, and I get that by being a member of this association. There are a number of associations you can join that enable you to get that sort of deal. Now, why do I choose that? Well, because that package, that $3,500 package, has unlimited everything. That's everything from unlimited transcripts and recordings, unlimited meetings, unlimited webinars if I want to run webinars, and from time to time I will because I do that training and speaking. And so it removes all the limitations for me. Now, you might not need those limitations. You might be able to actually get your entire package for less than $600 anyway, but I really enjoy the flexibility and freedom that gives me so I can do whatever I want when I want. I'm one for choices. I like to have abundance in the opportunities around me. So I would probably pay a little bit more personally so I have access to more choice than to try and bring that down to very low expenses. Now, I do that because the difference between when I used to run a marketing agency versus now doing the consulting is in the marketing agency, I had much higher costs, right? And so we were making maybe 20% margin on the work that we would do. And obviously that would fluctuate. But in this business, it's more than 80%, if not more than 100% profit margins on the work that I'm doing. And the difference now, being able to work remotely, means that I don't need the full team because I've got more time, especially working through this device here. I can see more people. I need less team. I've got 2 people that I work with who are my virtual assistants. One works as an assistant to me. The other one does a lot of video editing. Hello, Alfred. Say hello. And in the past, I've had up to 10 or 12 people, depending on the time of year, to support me running the business. And so that's much easier now with this online business because I've got less infrastructure and I'm more focused towards the clientele I'm working with. So that's a really useful thing, to being clear about who you work with. So that's enabled me to be much more lean in the business model that I've created. Now, the other side of things too is that I no longer do the same sort of networking that I once did. Now, I liked networking. I enjoyed going to networking functions, but at the end of the day, they became a real waste of time for me because I'm like, well, I go to this event, there might be 200 people at a breakfast, and I might speak to 3 to 5 people, and I just haven't got interaction with the entire room. And often I'd go to those networking events, and 80% of the room was actually not a person I could work with, and so I would become much more selective of the events that I would go to. So I've been to a few networking events this year, but instead of going to networking events as my way of making contacts now, I have online strategies for doing the same thing. So whether it's connecting via LinkedIn, and that's not my suggestion because it's the slowest way to actually have connections with people, because people are on average on that platform once every 2 weeks, which means trying to have a conversation in the LinkedIn direct message area is slow and useless. and I can tell you right now, we don't do that spam stuff that you probably receive. And so I'm just trying to have a conversation, and it's very difficult because people are rarely on there. But things like Facebook, things like other online platforms, things like even association groups and meetings that you can join, getting on masterminds and other groups, even online, it enables you to do a lot more networking online now, and I purposefully do it that way too. So whether it's myself or my team connecting with individuals and actually getting to know them to see if they are people that either we could work with, that we could help, that we could connect with other people, or that they could connect with us, or potentially they are just nice people to know and we might become friends with them, or maybe they're even suppliers. This is my networking now. I brought networking online. Now, if you enjoy the networking process, and I know a lot of people do, just bring it back into your day. Absolutely do it that way. But it is definitely one of the slower ways to build a network of contacts versus what we can do online. Now, the other thing, as I mentioned before, was the communicating differently. So if I'm on here, then you've got a head and a big head, right? All right. So there's just me facing you, and so how can I communicate with a bit more diversity? Well, there's a number of ways that I can do that, and visualization is one of the ways that we can do that. So let's say that we were in a face-to-face meeting. Well, we would usually probably bring a whiteboard into the interaction so we can start drawing up and visualizing some of the concepts that we're discussing. So I've gone and got myself a whiteboard. Now, in this case, I had a whiteboard over there. It broke. And, I can turn on this light to make it even brighter in this space. These are just extra lights that you might want to actually bring in, and another part of the technology that you might need if you're going to do all this stuff online. But now I've got this whiteboard, can interact as if I was here in the room with you. And if I put that over there and I go, no, I actually want to use the technical whiteboard that I've got, I can flip to here and we can talk, I can use a pen and I can talk about, all the movements that we can create from suspects to leads, and we do lead creation and then bring people to become customers and clients. So that's another thing that we can do. There's all sorts of ways, and really quick one, this is a workshop that I ran recently. This is the Codex, so a different format again. And all I'm doing is I'm using a piece of software called Ecamm. And if you're on a Mac, Ecamm is probably the way to go. Or if you're on a PC, OBS is another piece of software you can use to be able to switch between these different things very fast. And so what that enables for you is to be able to have fast ways of interacting and keeping people engaged, so that you are not having to fiddle around and people can't see what you're doing. Couple of quick tips on communication. Number one, understanding the space that you're actually working within. I think that's absolutely key. Number two, that we think of this sort of X coordinate and Y coordinate within the space, so it's almost like 2D. We can change that by actually giving it a little bit more depth, and we can talk on the Z-axis. So we can come back in here and I can talk to you quite intimately. But we can get to create a little bit more flavor in our communication by doing that. We can change the lighting, we can switch things on and off so that the background goes a little darker. I can look there, which means I'm actually looking at you, and we're speaking face to face. And some people, when they're starting doing that process, feel uncomfortable with it. They go, well, I don't feel like I'm talking to the person. But funnily enough, it's a skill and a muscle that you can work out. And so I can be in a room with 25, 30 people all in the Zoom room and showing up their different faces. And I can be facing there and instantly see what's going on as far as the body language of the individuals in the room. And it surprised me how quickly I was able to get to that. So probably after 3 months of doing fairly regular work in Zoom and running a lot of training programs, I got to a point where I could read the body language. I could actually read the lips of people who were turned off. And I created mechanisms and processes to get people on screen so that we can actually work together. Now, if you're doing a traditional consulting gig, people are going to come on camera. They're not going to be sitting off camera, right? So they're going to be far more engaged. But if you're wanting to do training as well as the consulting work that you do, then learning the tricks of communication to keep people engaged, and that's part of what I'm showing you right now, big keys in getting that done. Funnily enough, not many people use the whiteboard. I'm not sure why they don't. And so, I had the whiteboard. It did break. I've now got an easel, which is the one I just showed you before. And why do I do that? Well, it's my brand, man. I'm an artist. I'm a blacksmith. I like wood. I went and burned this thing, so it's got all the cool effect on the wood as well. And so that's part of what I do in designing this business, is actually make it really comfortable for myself. I get to choose the lighting. I get to choose the set, right? Here's a massive key. Stand up, right? So there are so many people who, if they were face-to-face running a facilitation with somebody, would stand up in front of a whiteboard and actually be engaging and be engaged. But when they get on Zoom, they decide to sit down, slump, ruin their posture, and ruin the energy that they can actually bring to the room. And so standing up, having a stand-up desk, in fact, this one here, I actually built it out of wood. I didn't even go and buy one. It was cheap as chips and fun a little project for me to put together. I've got a table, I've got a computer, I have a camera here, which is a Logitech camera, a couple of $100 just to get a little bit better quality, especially with the lighting, so I can have lower lighting, and I can actually have a camera where I can adjust the lighting and how much light it needs. That Logitech camera has been very good. I've also got like different things that I don't use anymore. So there are all sorts of things with the switching of the cameras, and I came up with there was a switcher that I could buy where I clicked certain buttons and it would jump to certain scenes. I found it was so much easier to actually just have a keyboard in front of me and use the same macro shortcuts that I would use back in the day, which I've been using since the 90s, right? So you don't need all the fancy stuff. I've got an arm there for like to put an iPad up on and a camera to sit up there. I don't need any of those things. I got them because I thought that I might need them, but you actually don't. And so, in particular, if you have good internet, if you have some software so that you can at least interact a little bit, you probably don't need anything more than Zoom, right? You certainly don't need business cards like you used to in the day. You don't need an office. You don't need all those. You don't need a brochure. We've got websites. We've got landing pages where we can do all this stuff. So if you've got your technology right, if you've got ability to create new contacts, in other words, mechanisms or activities that you will do online to network with people, you don't need to be going out there into the world anymore. And if you can get good at the communication, if you can learn to go, I'm going to try standing up. Interestingly, I hear about people having Zoom fatigue. I think that's because they're not Zoom fit, and that's fine for my client, and so I might break up the engagement so that we might do 2 hours at a time. But it's no different in the office either. Like if we have someone standing up for 8 hours in a presentation in an office, if you're not Zoom fit or if you're not presentation fit, you're going to be exhausted and you're going to be probably shattered for a couple of days if you're not used to doing it. And so part of client flow, part of getting enough clients in is, yes, to get the income you want, to have the choices you want, and potentially have a waiting list of clients you work with, but it's to also have interactions with clients on a regular basis so you improve, right? We want to have solid expertise. And I will say right from the start, the only thing you really need outside of internet to be able to do this sort of work is to have expertise. In other words, the ability to help somebody go from here to there, and then the ability to communicate that, and you can start right now. All it is about connecting with people who you know might be able to use your services, get into a conversation with them, and if the time is right, then you'll invite them to potentially have a conversation and talk about how you might be able to work together. Now, if you want more structure than that, we just released the Codex. The Client Codex is our end-to-end client acquisition system. It's what we teach in the Consulting Guild, which is a community all about creating a select consultancy, which is, as I said at the start, a consultancy that enables you to actually work when you want, with whom you want, anywhere in the world. So it's all about ultimate choice. And so you can build that, if you want, in the way that you would like, by following the same process as I have. That doesn't mean you have to work online. That doesn't mean you have to avoid networking functions. Doesn't mean you don't travel. I don't travel because I don't like traveling. I don't like hopping on planes. I certainly don't like hopping on boats. And it just kills me the amount of time between getting from here to there. If you ask my fiance, me waiting in lines is a bomb waiting to explode. So anytime where I'm waiting for something, and yes, I can work on my own patience, but that's not something I choose. All right, so this is why I like this environment. It also means that I can create videos like this by just walking down the stairs. I don't need any more equipment than what I've already got to do the consulting itself. And all those additions, whether it's publishing and creating a market position or a market leadership position, they're all choices that you can make too. But they're choices that come off the back of having enough clients, those clients giving you enough income to allow you to choose how you want to work. And so the first step is making sure that you've got that client acquisition process embedded and installed inside your business. So if you haven't already, make sure to go to russellpearsonprograms.com. We keep putting free resources up there. We change them often. Check it out if you've got that one already. If you haven't, make sure you download it absolutely free today. This has been episode number 99 of the Your Consulting Business podcast. My name is Russell Pearson. If you'd like to work with me further, you can look at the Forge Business Program, which accelerates the growth that we provide for business owners just like yourself, or you can join the Consulting Guild, which enables you to join a community of experts who are doing very much the same thing, which is building a select consultancy. Until next time, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.